What's up guys, Ivan Carranza here, and today I want to show you my live bass sound that I've been using on tour with the band Dr. Crapula for the last couple of months. Now, I just came back from playing a festival with them and I got to record my direct signal from the show and film. So I'm going to show you the three main sounds that I use on stage. One is more like warmer and I use that for the reggae and Latin style of songs. Then there's one that's more for the rock and more punky style of songs. And then that's the same sound plus overdrive. And I swap between all three sounds throughout the set because our songs vary quite a bit. And there are even songs that have all three sounds in them. So I have to, do quite a bit of switching throughout the set. But I want to show you how my isolated bass sounds like. Also blended it with some of the camera audio, and then also a clip that I got from somebody who filmed in the front of stage, which I think is a good representation of the sound, because when you hear in a mix, you might be surprised how different it sounds than when you hear the bass sound isolated. And there's another topic that I'm gonna come back to about listening volume as well, because that changes your perception. But let's jump to the samples and then we're gonna talk a little bit, the overall tones. First, we're gonna listen to the first sound that I mentioned, the warmer one that I use for the Latin and reggae style of songs, and the, let's say, mellower songs. Then we have the more rock, punky kind of tone. It's definitely much more aggressive. It's got more bite, more clank as well. And it changes a bit depending on how hard I hit the strings, of course. be honest, when I listen to it on its own, also especially if I listen to it while playing with my in-ear monitors, it's a bit nasty, to be honest, because there's a lot of bite, there's a lot of, or much more top end, but I need that to cut through a bit and be audible in the mix and retain some definition. Because in the band we have, of course, me as a bass player. Our guitar player has a stereo rig, so he sends his signal left and right, and that varies from heavily distorted guitar to some guitar with some delay and effects, and also clean-ish chords, but that already takes some space. Then we have keys, which are also stereo. We have a Moog or a Moog. Then we have a PC with samples and also some tracks, drums. Also an SPD with more backing tracks, which range from a horn section, vocal support, also some guitars sometimes to add up and fill some sonic space, samples, percussion in there as well, plus 4 vocals. So it's a very dense mix. And for the bass to be able to cut through, and it's not really like cutting through because not really like making the bass super pokey, but to have some definition, you gotta make the bass sound a bit nasty. So don't be surprised because of that. And the third sound is, like I said, the distorted tone, which is the same as the one before, but with added distortion. And here you get to hear all the mids, those added mids that you get from having distortion, which makes the bass, be more audible in the mix as well. Okay, so one thing that I forgot to say while I was recording the video, that is, of course, if you're listening to these clips with your phone or your laptop or something that has smaller speakers, you're probably going to hear more of the mids than anything else, because of course those little speakers can really reproduce a lot of bass. And maybe you're gonna hear that and you're gonna say, wow, that's really kind of weird sounds, all like clanky and not really like a bass, right? But if you take into account that we're playing festivals, somewhat large stages, and there are of course several subs there. Once you account for that, and probably what you could hear from that clip that I put of somebody filming from the front of the stage, the bass is still pretty full. So of course how the bass sound is perceived is going to be dependent on what is reproducing the sound. If you have like I said, several subs, that's going to carry a lot of low end energy. And if you're only listening to your little phone speakers, you're not really going to hear much bass from that. But believe me, it is really thick out in the front. And my bass is usually, to be honest, high passed at somewhere between 50 and 60 hertz to leave room for the kick drum. So there's not much point in adding too much bass on top of what there is, because the sound is high passed anyway to make it audible and to have some room for all the other instruments. Just for reference, because also, and I don't remember the name of this effect, but our ears are made to pick up mid frequencies better because of the speech at quieter volumes. And as soon as you start raising the volumes, let's say the curve of the EQ of everything kind of evens out, but you do need to raise the volume to make the bass and the treble even out. Otherwise, you kind of have like this if you're looking at the frequency spectrum, and the more volume you add, the curve starts to even out. So at really loud shows, of course, if you boost too much bass to your sound, you're gonna have too much low frequencies compared to upper treble frequencies or mids, which is gonna make your sound muddy. Just something to keep in mind for live big stages, because the quieter you are, the more mids you're gonna hear. And this is the problem when you dial in sounds in your bedroom, because you're dialing them in at bedroom volumes more likely. But as soon as you go to play a gig that's loud, you have guitars, drums, and so on, and then you add that there's a PA which is even louder and it's gonna amplify your sound even more. If you have too much bass, if you have too much treble, for example, because you dial those in at quieter volumes, and when that gets amplified, it's just way too much of those frequencies and the mids get buried and your sound gets a bit buried. So just, like I said, for reference and for you guys to know. Now, to be honest, I could probably play the entire set with just one single sound, and I would probably pick the very first one, the one that's a bit warmer, more supportive, because in those clips that I showed you, I had the tone control slightly closed. If I open it up a little more, you do get a pretty good and even and consistent sound, which would definitely work more than fine in all our songs throughout the set, depending on how I change my technique. So if I dig in a bit harder, it would work completely fine. But thanks to the quad Cortex that I'm using live, I get to go, let's say, the extra mile and swap my preset, my scenes, depending on the song, so I can change sounds pretty quickly throughout one song with it just, stepping on a button, which is why I decide to change those sound, because it does suit the songs a bit more, and if I have the option, why not do it? But here you also have to be a bit careful, because of course having a lot of options can hurt you. So I try to keep the volumes up as close as I can. Of course, the ones that are more aggressive have a bit more distortion, more drive, so the level is maybe a bit higher, but with the compression that I have on my board and so on, it evens things out a little bit. Still retaining dynamics, still allowing me to be, play maybe a bit quieter, louder, more aggressive, and not having just like a complete squashed signal. And I try to use my rig as if I had a real pedal board. I'm not swapping amp models throughout the set. I'm not swapping cabinets. I'm not doing crazy things that couldn't happen in the real world. I know some people do that, but I prefer to keep the amp, for example, and the cabinet the same. I have my signal chain like as if it was a normal, regular pedal board, going from your bass into the pedals and then into the amp, and it goes out of the cabinet and so on. I'm gonna do a video on the quad Cortex setup that I use, especially giving some feedback about using it on tour for the last 2.5 years once my tour finishes. But I just wanted to show you how a real world bass sound is that definitely works live, and I've used it for several shows. I tweaked it a little bit for the Super J, for my new bass, my Dingwall Super J, which I got earlier this year, but it's pretty much the same preset that I used with my Dingwall Super P. I had to add a little bit more gain because the pickups on the Super J are a bit quieter and also, of course, have a different sonic character, but it's pretty much the same preset. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know how you set up your bass sound. I would be pretty curious to know what you guys are using. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comments. And also, don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell to stay up to date with the content that's coming to the channel. As always, thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care.
you.